PJ Ghadimi, man, in your house this time. And I told you, I was like in a Candyland when I walked in here, and it was like so many colors, so much going on. And I said to you, hey, how the hell do you walk in here every day like this? What a beautiful land, man.
Well, first off, I'm happy to have you for round 2, so it's going to be interesting. Secondly, you know, I've built this place as a means of just creating a place of beauty that really inspires me every day to not only want to come here, but I'll also be in a position to inspire myself to the next level, so that I normalize this level of beauty, so that I don't no longer look at it as an achievement, but as a baseline. So I've always said, if you want to keep going up, you got to keep setting the stage, right, for the next chapter. And the number one thing I think people miss is they really focus heavily on these ideas of plateaus and the ceiling and what's the top of where I can go. And instead, I look at it as, how do I create the baseline from where I am, and only focus on the future and never on the past. So.
And you also said to me that it frees you up to focus, which is great.
100%. You have to create environments for yourself that really work for you. And that's different things for different people. Some people are very motivated by their family, right? They're like, oh, if I work in a place where I can see my kids, or if I have free time, that's what they consider success, right? So they're like, the more time I'm spending with my kid, the better I feel about it. And other people look at that and they go, the more cars I have, the better I feel. And someone else may say, the bigger my house, or someone else say, if I can, you know, my company makes X amount of money. Like, there's some things you can kind of experience from a actual tangible standpoint, and there are some things that are in your mind. So you have to be able to create a balance of both, so you can continuously push to get to the next level that you want to get to, until you're at a point where you go, I'm satisfied with the experience I can create and the experience I've created enough to want to live through it instead of go to the next level.
So, you know, I've had the opportunity to sit and have conversations with you before, and one of the things that strikes me is that you're very relaxed, very articulate, but underneath that, it seems to me like there's a workhorse, someone who is very perseverant, very dynamic, and I see a lot of the work that you do. I mean, you are consistent. That's the word. That
nonstop.
Sense of consistency.
Nonstop, 25 years.
Nonstop.
But I love it though. It's not a bad thing. People think it's a bad thing. You know, like they've normalized this work-life balance in society, where they're like, you're supposed to work and then you're supposed to be off. You're supposed to have time off, have a vacation, have family time. And I look at that and I go, well, you don't have to. You have to do what works for you, right? Like, just like with some people, like I told you, would argue that who needs more stuff? You have enough stuff. And it's not even about stuff. Like, I like beauty and I like cars, watches. People think it's oh, well, you're just buying stuff to one-up people. I'm like, I'm buying stuff because I enjoy it, and it's also financially responsible to do it, so why wouldn't I do it, you know? But ultimately, the way I look at it is that if you are satisfied with the experience you're creating, then you're going to slow down and enjoy that experience. And I believe there's still a level of experience that I need to get to that is higher than the one I've gotten to, because I've seen it.
Sure.
And so as long as I'm not there, I'm always going to have this sense of urgency that I would rather work a lot to get to that level and then chill, rather than chill now and slower to get to that level. So like when I was poor, someone said, let's go to Italy in my 20s. They were like, let's go to Italy, discover Italy, see the Pisa Tower. And I was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. And they were like, why? I'm like, because I'm poor. As a poor person, I'm not interested in experiencing Italy. How much of Italy can I experience if I don't have the money to go to the better parts of Italy, stay in the 5-star hotel? So fuck Italy. I'd just rather sit here and work so that one day I have enough money to go to a 5-star hotel, be on the rooftop, see the best stuff, drive through Tuscany in a Ferrari, and do all these things, and then be like, Italy was hot. You know, it was amazing. It was incredible. And I wasn't limited to like, well, we got to go eat here because we only have $62 in our pocket. It was like, no, I want to eat at the best. What was the best place that people recommend? What's the number one pasta they have in Italy? Like, people just have this need for gratification early. They have to have their reward before they put in the work. And like, so for me, it was always like, I didn't earn Italy, so it's okay not to have it. You know, and other kids would be like, well, if you're in your 20s, you got to live it up. And I was like, why? It's like saying you got a fucking ugly chick before you're the right person to get the hot chick. Like, no, you don't have to. You can just be the peak fucking guy and then get the 12 and fuck the 12. And like, you don't have to go through having the 6s now because you can qualify for anything. So you can say, I'm gonna have maybe 1 6, I'm gonna learn, and I'm gonna chill, right? And then I'm gonna get to the 10, and then I'm gonna fucking get there. And that's what people really miss in the idea of work. It's like the need for this balance of having gratification now.
Talk to me a little bit about, okay, we know that you have strong work ethic, but in your perspective, in our day and age now where we are living, what is the common fault across pretty much female, male, trying to get to the top? Where do they fail? What's that step that they miss?
To outside of gratification and needing to get there fast. 2 things I think are common across all humans. And humans evolve, like I talk about this in my books, into 3 stages: awareness, self-awareness, consciousness. Humans fail in 2 realms. The first one is they try to escape the matrix instead of conquer it. That's a big thing. Like society has done a really good job to alienate people who believe that somehow the matrix is evil. Banks are evil, government's bad, it's doing a terrible job, so it's against you. Okay, you live with government, you don't have a choice to pay taxes.
Sure.
They put you in jail, doesn't matter, like, you know, I mean, at some point maybe they'll change it, but for now, you don't pay taxes, you go to jail. You can't break laws, you can't go shooting people like I want to. Maybe, you know, you get to a point in life where you have enough money where you get away with it, but most people can't, meaning if it's in the media, you'll end up in jail.
Of course.
So you have laws for a reason. You run a red light, you get in an accident, you cause the accident, you gotta pay for it, right? So laws are meant to create an even playing field so that rich people are generally not impacted by poor people. So a lot of people don't understand that. Laws are built that way. So therefore, they are built for the future you. So you can't escape that process. You gotta conquer through it. Like that's a big, big problem. And people look at these things like, well, banks are evil, so I'm not gonna go put my money in a bank, right? I wanna escape the bank. It's like, no, you need to learn to use the bank, because the bank is a financial tool that a lot of people are using to become very wealthy, very intelligent, very successful. So you can't avoid the tools because you don't like them or they're not benefiting you or it's hard. Like it's hard to get a loan when you're young and don't have money when you need it the most.
Of course.
But you still have to do it because at some point when you're richer and you're like, hey, I need this leverage to buy this big building or do this and that, you're gonna need that bank. And if you didn't learn that and you escaped the whole youth when it was hard and it was expensive, well, you're not playing that. So you're playing a different game than the rest of the world can play, right? So that's a big, big issue for young people, is like escaping the matrix instead of conquering it. 2, I think this is really important, and they make this significant mistake. They have turned possibility into envy. And this is a very, very big problem. Possibility into envy is a big mistake young people make, and I blame social media for that. What that means is, I was a poor child looking through a basement window, and I was lived in a rich neighborhood, but in the basement. I used to watch kids grab Camaros and nice cars and drive. And instead of being envious of that and being like, man, I wish I was that kid, I was excited that this was possible. I had seen what the war in Iran looked like, and now I was looking at a kid driving a Camaro picking up a chick, and I thought, that's nice, you know, like that's not like I should be that kid. Instead, it was like, that's nice. When I got hired in banking and I was in sales and I saw, hey, the guy in front of me is a manager and he's young, it wasn't like, well, I should be that guy. Instead, it was like, that's exciting, that's possible. Someone gave that guy that shot, right? Like,
love that, yes.
I see a guy wearing a Rolex when I have 10 grand to my name. He has a really beautiful Rolex on that's worth more than my entire net worth.
Sure.
And I look at that as like how amazing that this country allows that person to have gotten to a stage where he's able to wear a watch, not only freely without getting killed outside, but secondly, it's just so nice to see a person wearing a watch that's that expensive. It tells me what the ceiling looks like from where I am, right? So we have done such a bad job as a society, constantly comparing ourselves to people instead of competing with them. And there's a huge disconnect in this lack of competition and in the fear of it instead. You know, it's like I fear to compete because I could lose. And instead, we compare to what we should be entitled to because other people have it. So we say, well, that kid's 25 and he's made $1 million, so I feel like I'm not good enough, right? Instead of competing and saying, that's amazing, what did you do? Oh, I trade. Okay, let me verify that that's real, first off, and you're not just lying. Okay, now I verified. That's even better. Like, I'm super fucking impressed. And that means that if you did it, imagine what's possible for me. Because now that you've done it, that means there's a framework out there that's worked for you, which means I could follow that framework and double what you've done. But people don't look that way. They look at everything as in true envy, right? So it's like, oh, this person has this, so I don't have that. So I'm envious instead of like excited. You know, like, and I look at, when I talk to my friends and like, he brings up his yacht and like, we're sitting there and I'm like, this is amazing. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And he's like telling me, he's like, oh, it's a $50 million yacht. And oh, he's fucking amazing. I'm like, this is incredible. And I'm like, what'd you sell your last company for? $800 million. And I'm like, in what other fucking country can you sell a company, like, you know, a company for $800 million at 45 years old, be sitting in a $50 million yacht, have 6 penthouses, this, that, 40 cars. And I'm like, I love that. Like, I love that that's possible for you, because now I know what I want, because through your experience of putting me on this boat, on this plane, in this way, you've triggered me to experience something I didn't know existed. And now I want it. So now that I want it, I have to figure out where is my baseline and where am I going.
I love that, man. Wow, that's so powerful, because you're right. There's a lot of people out there that just want to compare instead of actually challenge themselves and compete to be the best version of themselves, like you're saying.
And maybe that best version is not as good as that guy, but at least trust me that getting there is still better than where you are.
100
So
times.
you have nothing to lose by
Agreed.
Competing and ending up number 2.
Agreed.
But you have everything
Agreed.
to lose by sitting there and being like, hey, oh man, I wish I was that rich. Well, it doesn't change anything.
So what I notice a lot of times is that men who don't want to compete, who don't want to put in the time and the effort, they sit there, they spit poison, they hate, but more importantly, then they sit behind. To give you an example, okay, and I know I'm going to piss a lot of maybe Christians and Bible thumpers out there, but the reality is that so many Christians that I know say, hey, you know what? All these things are just material things. You should not lust for them. You should not want them. You should live a very humble life. I fire back and I say, why? We have one life to live. Why not enjoy the finer things in life? You don't necessarily have to attach yourself, because obviously all of this is rental, man. The day you go and you pass, you enjoyed it, great, but it's not going with you in the grave. So I get that, but why not be able to get to that next level and enjoy the finer things in life? Drive the Ferrari in Italy, have a beautiful collection of cars, marry a beautiful woman, have just everything that you want and you desire, instead of saying, no, that's a bad thing. Money is the root of all.
Well, that's the
evil.
thing, escaping society versus conquering it, right? That's exactly what I said at the beginning. If you escape society, money is evil. Banks are evil. You don't want to participate. Participation is key in any society. Doesn't matter what the game looks like. There's a game and you got to play it. Now, we can go into religion if you really want to piss people off.
I'm open, man. I'm open. That's why I came here, man.
So there's a lot to unpack there in what you said.
Sure.
So envy usually comes from the bottom up, right? So people above you usually aren't envious of what you're trying to do, right? People that are envious are typically people who can't get there, who don't like to feel inferior. So if you're a fat guy walking around and you're not healthy, and I go up to you and I'm like, you're fat, you feel attacked. If you're a fat guy at the gym and you're working out and you're killing yourself to lose weight, you recognize reality. So you go, I'm fat. Obviously, that's why I'm at the gym. So clearly I'm in the right path. You can't discourage me from that because I'm in the right place. I'm already taking action towards my goal. And usually no one will go criticize the fat guy at the gym. You don't look at a guy that's like super heavy at the gym trying and really sweating and doing his thing and you're like, dude, what an idiot, why are you here?
Respect that. Sure.
You respect the attempt at success, right? So no one ever that has something better than you, a better physique, will come to you and say, well, why are you here trying to bench? They may even coach you and say, here are some extra things you could do to speed up your success. Like, I want you to be successful and I can see that you're trying. So envy comes from the bottom, never from the top, right? This is the first one. Secondly, so if you're going to talk about Christianity or religious belief in the idea that religion has brainwashed people into thinking that living modestly or living in synchronicity with simplicity is the way to find success, well, then you don't understand the history of religion and where it comes from. Because what happens is, most times, I'll ask religious people a couple of things, because humans evolve the same way. I don't care what and religion is a societal belief. It's not a life belief as much as people want to make it about a larger power. It's a societal creation. It's a structural creation to create order in society. So what is a structural creation? Which means we, as a species, take outside of which territory you're born in, which shouldn't, I mean, countries are man-made, right? We decide where the line is in the sand. If a person says, okay, we're in the old days, we used to fight for women, we used to fight for food, you had a lot of food, I didn't like it, I would come kill you, take your stuff. It's counterintuitive to evolution. Like, if everybody's killing each other, no one's evolving, and only the strong survive, right? So if I have 14 wives, well, maybe there aren't enough women for you. So I create 14 versions of me with 14 wives. You don't pass on or create any offspring, right? So this imbalance in society is very dangerous because it's counteractive to the idea of evolution. So structure is needed to create order. Order is needed to allow basic functioning concepts so that we can coexist as a pool. The evolution of religion is law. A law is set by a country so that you don't have to believe in God, you still have to follow law.
Yes.
Right? A donation at a church is a tax in society, right? It's like, you want to donate? I believe I will donate all my money. Okay. Do you want to donate to your taxes? No. Well, you don't have a choice because we're offering you police in exchange for and protection. Like, what do our taxes go to? Defense and police. That's it. Like, basically, the entire perimeter can be done that way. You're either getting defense so your country's safe, so you can work knowing you're not going to get bombed tomorrow. And you also work so that you know the next guy next door is not going to come put a gun to your head and say, it's my house now. You're like, you bought that house. Yeah. Well, no, it's my house. You get out. Now, I have a bigger gun, so you go and figure something out with your family. You're like, there's a law. I pay my taxes. Dude, come get this guy out of my house and put him in jail, right? So that's what the evolution of religion is. But let's go back to the beginning of religion, which is much more important. If you ask most Muslims, Christians, doesn't matter where you take them from, you ask them, what do you believe in? They'll have a picked religion. Generally, that religion will say, why did you adopt this religion? They will say, well, my parents were, and then I learned about it, I liked it, so I continued it. But choice only comes if you have perspective. You don't know what you don't know, so if you don't understand what other choices there are, how do you know you actually had a choice to begin with, right? So if I say, have you studied Buddhism? Have you studied the Quran? Have you studied all of these other religions? No, I haven't read those books. So why did you choose Christianity? It's the right one. Jesus is king. Okay. But ask a Muslim, would he agree with you? No. Has he studied the Bible? Right? Like, so the verse holds for anybody. Like, every human's the same. But if we go even further than that, this is the beauty of religion. If you actually look at the history of religion, the first recorded religion wasn't Christianity. The reason Christianity is actually such a good religion, and I'll tell you why it's really important, is it's the only religion in history that has ever adopted its own evolution. And the evolution of religion, you ready for this? Capitalism. So because Christianity was a religion that did not impede capitalism and allowed free markets to carry on while worship occurred, it was an adopted religion by the West. And it's a good religion because it doesn't force you to go down that path.
Yes.
But it gives you structure if you want, and you can evolve into capitalism like everyone else. And that's what it is. That's why someone could be very wealthy and still religious, right? Versus in other countries, like if you look in the Middle East, you can't. So get it? Like, unless you're government or you're someone of the clergy, you can't be rich, right? And they have to hide their money. So it's not adaptive. That's why we're at war with the Middle East all the time, because it's a way of life that's counteractive to the idea of the flow of money. Because in the new world, money is God, because it's an equal opportunity versus God has an unequal basis on how the church would look at it. So the first religion in ever being recorded is called Zarathustraism. And the reason why Zarathustraism is very different, which is in the history of religion, you can Google this, you can look it up if you're watching this. So the real interesting fact, it's not even about which religion, I'm not a Zarathustrian or anything else, but what's really important here about Zarathustraism is that that was the first religion that was recorded. And what was that doctrine compared to all other religions? You ready for this? Super cool. The doctrine that was super important was that in that religion, man was meant to become a god. And that created the fall of the Persian Empire when they freed the slaves, and the slaves said, well, if we're meant to be gods, then we will take over, and that created the collapse of the Persian Empire. So when those people migrated out to all these new places and everything, the church had a problem with that. What happens if people think they're God? Or they're going to be God, or they're going to evolve to God? Well, they're all going to want power. But then we don't have order. If everybody's seeking power and man is meant to be all-powerful, then that's a problem. So we will alter that idea. Men will worship God, and the king will be blessed by God, and the church will be the voice of God. And so came this triangle pyramid of connection between state, church, and the idea. And so now you have a very different, defined human who's now humbled down to never being above a king or above the gospel or whatever you want to call it of whoever is saying that, because he's not directly blessed. And how dare him to think he could be a god or anything else. But that's a very interesting twist on religion, because now it shows you the prism and the prison that gets created by that structure if you can't break free of it. Wow. What we learn in human consciousness is simple. The human condition is nothing more than a human experience. Like, what experience are you having? So how does it all connect to cars and watches or anything? Experiences created at the level of Rolls-Royce, Ferrari, or anything, you're not using a car to drive for transportation. You take a Kia for transportation because you're trying to get from point A to point B. Inconvenience. You have leather seats, you have a stereo, you have windows that go down. It's a convenience. It's not an experience. The best, you eat out of convenience when you're hungry. You don't eat out of pleasure. The human body is programmed to only excel in experience, which means that a human being is incapable of having a Ferrari-like experience and then not recognize that heightened level of experience and then get satisfaction from driving a Kia again. Okay, so if you've experienced a Wagyu steak at the best steakhouse in Boca Raton, you will not be able to go to Red Lobster or Outback and get a steak and be like, this is enjoyable. Instead, you'll be like, why am I eating this? Because you have now tasted and your experience, your taste buds have enhanced themselves. If you hear great music, right, you cannot go back down to listening to terrible rap music. And it's the same thing with everything. You can't see beautiful things and then be like, I'm happy living here. So that's how the body and the senses are created, to always elevate our experience to the highest level possible. But yet, everything we've learned about society and life and religion contradicts that. It forces us to think smaller. It forces us to think humbling ourselves. Who said that being humble meant to drive a Kia? Nobody, except poor people. Nobody. Who would ever deny a great experience for a crappy one? Who would ever say you're better off going to a terrible hotel in Italy or in France rather than a 5-star hotel where the food is better? People who never experienced better hotels. Sure. So that's why there's such a conflict of wealth in the world, because and look at how good society has done a job at being able to include poor people into these things and making them feel and elevate them in their experience. Let me give you a perfect example. 10 years ago, you couldn't buy a Porsche under 50 grand. Right? Like, every car was expensive. Now, every manufacturer has an entry-level car. They have a Cayenne, they have a Macan for poor people. Get it? Now, you go buy a Rolls-Royce, you have a Phantom, and you have a Ghost. At every level, it's learned so well to structure itself, to give people the hierarchy of evolution. To say, you can tap into our brand, so we'll get you in early, so you can experience it, touch it. You'll want a better car. And that's true. You'll buy a Ferrari, you'll be hooked on the brand, you'll only buy better Ferraris. You'll buy Lamborghini, you'll be hooked on the brand, you'll eventually get to from a Technica to a Vuelto to whatever. The point is, they have done such a good job at understanding us. That's why menus have cheap options to expensive options, but the restaurant brings you in. Even if you want a burger, you could buy the same burger at $15 at Five Guys, or you can buy the same $15, $20 burger at a 5-star steakhouse. But they want you in that place so you can meet people, you can see people, and you'll be hooked, and you'll come back and you'll buy the $100 steak. That's how society has founded itself. And what I'm saying is, once you understand that's the matrix that's playing out in front of you, once you understand how that works, and you understand how to optimize your body into that, and you're like, this is how I play this game, then it's the rise on both sides. You know, everything keeps going up and keeps growing.
So it's these deep experiences that are visceral, right?
Yes,
Where
your
it's
body's
just-
built for them.
Yeah, it's a place where many people, especially the ones that do spit poison and the ones that are, you know, complacent in their lives and that hate on others who are successful, those people have never experienced anything like that.
Correct.
So
That's
you're
why we say hang out with rich
100%.
people. Hang out with your top, what did it say? Like, you hang out with top performers, you become
Yep.
20% better immediately, right?
Yes.
Because the way they look at life, they're not like, oh, well, you should be taking a vacation right now. They're like, why are you here? Go work. And you're like, wait, what do you mean? I thought everybody else told me I should go home and like hang out with my family. No, go work. Oh, you're not working hard enough. Well, what do you mean? Like, your perspective starts to change. You're like, the idea of hard work is not like, now I'm going to work 40 hours a week. Instead, it's like, hey, this guy, when he's talking about hard work, he's talking about like adapting, doing 100 things, learning, doing this. Like, I never seen that. Like, I don't, you know, none, all my friends are saying, let's go get a beer at 5 p.m. at the local pub, and that's what we're going to do.
Sure. Give me 3 priorities in your life.
Personal priorities?
Personal priorities.
Live the highest possible experience of beauty at any given time, any given moment, so that I'm in control of time rather than being controlled by it. So my worldview is one of beauty, and I choose to be circled and surrounded by it so that I can constantly elevate to the next level. That's my #1 priority in the world. Beauty takes many forms and shapes, from family to beautiful items to beautiful architecture. And it also requires an optical eye, like a real view of that one thing you have to understand that I think is so important. When we interact with items, people say, well, it's just a car, it's just a house, it's just this, who cares? You said, we can't take it with you. It's not about that. You are taking it with you. And let me tell you what that means. Legacy is a Rolls Royce. Why? The people that worked on the Rolls Royce, the people that worked on the Bugatti, on the Ferraris, and all that shit, they're not average people who got jobs. They're people who donated their energy, their worldview, their beauty, and their expert mastery at what they do to a company. And they said, I'm the #1 most talented designer. I'm going to draw the next Ferrari. I'm going to create the next interior for the Rolls Royce. They didn't just give you a car. They gave you a piece of their legacy so you can experience it and inspire yourself to the next level. So when we think of these things as items, we're thinking about the status of them rather than the experience of them and the energy that went into creating them, because they weren't works of need. They were the works of people who wanted to communicate. It's no different than looking at a painting a 5-year-old draws and looking at a Van Gogh painting. Van Gogh was trying to make you see what he could see through his eyes so that you could actually understand the world from his view. That's the same thing Rolls-Royce does, same thing Ferrari does, same thing Richard Mille does. It doesn't matter. It's crafting something of beauty to leave behind. And you have to attain a certain level of wealth to experience that, which is important because the price of admission isn't free. Otherwise, you wouldn't be special. Expertise and mastery isn't cheap, it's expensive. And it should be. It should not be experienced by all because it would lose its value. So that's so important. That's why I focus on that, to be surrounded by the best of things. So whenever I buy a car and it's an average product, I call it a piece of shit, and people on the internet are like, this guy's not humble. You know, he thinks a 400K car is a piece of shit. I'm like, this wasn't made from a level of mastery. This was made to appeal to the masses. And I don't give a fuck about it. I don't care how good it is around the track. It's a piece of shit. It doesn't create an experience that I want to be part of. So this is stupid. And people are like, this guy, man, he thinks he knows better because he's a race car driver. I'm not a race car driver. I just know what it's supposed to do, and it's not doing it. So it doesn't matter how much people like it because it's the popular thing because a celebrity did it. And I was like, it's a piece of shit. You can buy other things for the same money that do a better job. So it's not worth it. That's priority number one beyond anything else. Priority number two, negate myself every single day. My highest experience is only accurate as long as the information I hold is as accurate as it can be. So I just gave you a theory on religion. I gave you my thesis on everything that life flows through. You come to me and you go, I got a better thesis. I think you're wrong. I would love that conversation. Because now my job is to take your piece of information, run it through my database, and say, have I already tested that theory out? Right? And it's like, yes, and I've already negated it. So I've had 50 experiences, and I've already gone through that course of evolution, and you're saying, no, I think mine is better, but I go, have you gone through my course of evolution? If the answer is no, you don't have a better theory to bring to the table. Get it? Because I've already negated that theory. Sure. So when you come to me and you say, I said, this Ferrari, you said, no, the Technic is a better car, than this Ferrari. I said, okay, have you owned that Ferrari? You go, no. Then your opinion doesn't matter, right? Because at this point, you have not had the experience I've had, right? So you have a theory of what that's like because you have an opinion.
100%.
Right? But you haven't had the experiences I've had, so you can't say that. Like if I say France is better than the US, you may say, oh yeah, well, I don't think so. Like we have more millionaires here. I would be like, have you lived in France? And how long? Between what years? And you would say, well, no, I have never lived in France. Okay, well, I have lived in France. So I can tell you that life's better in America, right? Because I've lived in both quadrants. Sure. So the point is, without experience, we have no context. And consciousness is not about saying, I figured out what life is and that's it. It's my absolute truth. It's to understand that the absolute truth is only as good as the information that you've uncovered as you generated that truth. So if you've generated truth to date, that information may change. Like you decided to take a COVID vaccine because you've given all the information and you thought this was a good idea. Okay, you took that vaccine for whatever reason and thought it was a good idea. New information comes to light that it wasn't such a good idea and it was stupid. Okay, you can change your position. You can say, now that more data is available, that's a bad position to take. And the faster you can do that, the faster you can adapt to that change, the faster your consciousness stays at the highest possible absolute truth, because no one can prove better, right? So I have books on human consciousness, and I always tell people, if I'm wrong, prove me wrong. Like, I want to learn where I'm wrong, and I will unpublish my books, and because if I'm teaching consciousness and it's inaccurate, right? Then no, I'm sorry, but like, why would my books be there? Like, they're providing a false narrative for people that would hurt them. I don't want that.
So when you review cars, okay, and you say this is a piece of shit, and I see the videos, or sometimes, well, it's okay here, but it doesn't really do the job here, and for this price, you can get this is much better. That's because you've experienced a lot of different cars.
Every car you can think of.
Right. And so it comes from a place, it doesn't come from a place of being angry. It's just a place of like.
And it doesn't come from a place of personal opinion.
Right.
It comes from the experience of both sides and saying for this context, it's not that good. Like why they could have done this and they didn't.
Yeah, so a lot of people, they get their feathers ruffled because
but they do because you're attacking their dream. So when I call a poor person that drives a Corvette, I'm like, you're poor because you drive a Corvette. They go, my Corvette's faster than your car. I didn't buy my car to race you. Like I'm sure there's a Mustang that's faster than your Corvette. There's a Honda Civic faster than your Mustang.
There's a lot of electric vehicles.
It doesn't matter. If someone races a $1 million Lamborghini with a Corvette and I call him a peasant, they go like, well, you're not humble. I go, there's nothing to do with that. I could have bought his car 5 times over, burned it to the ground. I'm wearing a $500,000 watch. I can take his car, burn it to the ground, watch it burn, sing Zimbabwe next to it, and be like, well, let's use it for heat. I could care less. Nothing happens. But his option cannot come to my side and say, I could have bought that $1 million car and I chose this Corvette. No, you couldn't. That's the reality. So your experience is limited. You choose the best thing you can afford. And I chose the best thing you can afford because it is all around much better than what you're driving. Now, yeah, it may not be faster, but the goal of an experience is not always to be the fastest. So when people are poor, typically they overcompensate for their lack of something by buying something that's something they can afford and then using it to justify why they don't need to go up. So there's nothing wrong if someone has 3 Ferraris and chooses to drive a Corvette too. I have plenty of friends that are like, I like the Corvette, it's a cool car. Okay, I have a Mustang Cobra R as a child. I mean, I'll never fucking drive it, it's a piece of shit, but you know what? I have it because as a child I wanted one.
Sure.
Okay, I couldn't afford it. I have a Viper, I never fucking drive it. It's a cool fucking car. Can it be cool? Yes. But would I take that Viper and try to find someone with a Bugatti and be like, I want to drag race you to show you that my Viper is faster? It's irrelevant. It is irrelevant in the context of what it's built for. It's just completely irrelevant.
So do you think with that, I'm very much into cars. You know, I've been a Porsche guy for many, many years. And recently, I went for the first time. I had never driven Lamborghini before. Okay, I have 2 Lamborghinis, but I had never driven Lamborghini. And going back to the visceral experience, to me, it was when I sat behind, and don't get me wrong, I had Turbo S, I mean, I had a 992, beautiful car, fast, but when I sat behind the Huracan for the first time, you know, V10 engine, to me, that driving experience was like, holy shit, that car is not as fast. It doesn't even handle as good. But just the engine and the feel, to me at my level, it was like...
Right, but it's an experience. That's exactly what you're describing. It's the experience that connects with you. That's why we have preferences. Some people like Ferraris because they're more docile. Some people like aggressive, you know, Lamborghinis. Some people like Porsches because they're more practical and they like to drive their cars every day. You know, doesn't matter what there's no such thing as a right or wrong experience, but you can't criticize an experience that you can't have.
That's true.
Meaning if I didn't have a Bugatti, I couldn't tell you, well, Bugattis are pieces of shit because my Ferrari goes much faster around a track. Bugatti wasn't created to race with a Ferrari.
People are hung on like 0 to 60 times, and quarter-mile times.
No, people are hung on to their poverty. Society has done such a good job at alienating, and like I told you, envy, right? It's like if I'm envious of someone, I'm going to find every reason why I don't need to become that person. That person is not humble. Like how many times we know, okay, how many people pick on trust fund kids? I love this part. Fucking kid and his parents fucking did this and they fucking bought him a car. He's 16, he got a fucking $300,000 car and that kid's never gonna learn values, right? Like fuck that kid.
I hear that all the time.
Why the fuck do you work? Well, so your kids can be that fucking trust fund kid.
Damn right.
So at the end of the day, the whole point of knowledge is to compound it and pass it. So your child doesn't have to work at McDonald's, right? Like you don't need to start at the bottom every time. That's why I also laugh at the parents who are morons, who are like, I built an empire, my kid won't get shit. You're an idiot. The whole point is to pass your family forward and to drive the next wave and the next wave and the next wave for growth. So if you're sitting there and you're like, my child's gonna go work poverty somewhere, you're an idiot. Like you just don't understand how like just life works generally and the human experience works. So the point that I'm trying to make is not that your child shouldn't learn hard work, but they shouldn't focus on working the things that are so irrelevant and stupid, right? They're just not going to get anywhere. It's just dumb, so it just doesn't work. So you have to focus heavily on like maybe because I have the opportunity to teach them better things because I'm smarter, I've made it to some level, let's get them to work off of this baseline up. You know, think this way so you don't have to rethink and learn everything I've learned, right? But people don't think that. They're usually envious of what they can achieve. So they're envious of a child who has a $200,000 car at the age of 18 because they're 50 and they don't have a $200,000 car, or they had to work for their money and they feel very, at some point, someone paid the bill. That is the grandpa, the dad, someone did it. And it's them in that generation that's gonna pass it on to the next. And some people figured it out, some people didn't. But that envy is there, that's an experience you have that I can't have. And listen, that is curiosity. Envy needs to turn to curiosity. If people are gonna survive in society in the next 20, 30, 50, 100 years, people have to realize that anytime you're envious of something, become curious of how it's happening. And that's going to give you a great opportunity to turn your like hate into work and say, I understand, I don't have, I will get.
So you think people should be more open to learning and stop hating a little more and start saying, hey, I can get to that level if I push. Let me learn from that. You know, mentors, people that maybe could take you under their wing. I mean, I don't see that.
Doesn't even matter. You
I
just
don't
have
see
to.
that nowadays.
But like I said, social media does a really good job at pitting us against each other, in the sense that it shows you everything that's gonna have a reaction out of you, and it doesn't encourage anything. It glorifies success to a point where people don't think they should be reachable anymore. I have 300,000 followers. Like, someone gives a shit. You're still poor. Who cares? So the point that I'm trying to make is, in their head, they're like, I'm important, so I'm not gonna talk to you, nobody, right? People aren't connected to reality because they've created this avatar themselves. And even if they have some level of success, they think they're super successful about that. Like, I'll tell you what's actually really funny. Like, I downplay my success a lot, like a lot. And people think I upplay it because they're like, oh, well, you have all these cars. I'm like, I only show you, like, there are a lot more cars that are in this warehouse right now, that are on in this warehouse right now, and people don't know about them. And the reason I do that, even I was flying private for like a couple of years. I don't really post that many photos. Only recently I was like, oh yeah, I was on a Bahamas trip with my family, and I was like, we just had a photo, and I thought it was a really cool plane. It was a $20 million plane, so I was like, that's a cool plane. But like, I don't care that people know that about me. Does that make sense? Like, I just don't give a shit. But people glorify every tiny little thing into becoming like the view of what they want people to think of them. But they're not actually producing anything. So I'll be sitting there with guys that have like Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and we're having a conversation, and I'm like, let's all throw 50 G's on something. Oh yeah, for what? I'm like, you don't have 50 grand. No, I ain't got 50 grand. Why are you talking a big game on social media? Right? So where I get to is that, fine, you don't have 50 grand, that's okay. You don't need to pretend you do, right? You can work towards becoming that person. I'm a big advocate for, you should have cars, success before, so you touch it, you feel it, it motivates you. But people get stuck in it. They get it, and then they get stuck in the glorification. And I'll tell you how my life was different. When I got my first Lamborghini when I was in my 20s, and I bought it, and yeah, I was making my payment, and I was like, fuck, this is like crushing me. I was making my payment, but here's what I was doing. I was going to clubs, and I was getting invited to come to the club, get a free bottle. As DC, nobody fucking had a Lamborghini. I was like a king. I fucking got pulled over into clubs and shit, and people are like praising me. Who's this kid with the Lamborghini, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's get to know you. I didn't have any money, right? And I was like, yo, I can't fucking do these. I can't fucking be sitting at these tables. And then I realized these people all to keep thinking I'm like some billionaire fucking driving these cars. I was like, I need to go somewhere where driving a Lamborghini makes you look like a peasant. And guess where I went? Florida. Everybody had a fucking Ferrari, Lamborghini, everybody had a Bentley. I fucking came to Meiser Park, I'm looking around, I'm like, why did like 9 Bentleys parked there? No one gives a shit. No one's taking a photo, no one gives a fuck. And I'm like, this is where I fucking belong, where no one gives a shit that you got a car. And you know what happened? I got here, my neighbor had a Bugatti. And that was 2011, right? And I was like, I had a Maserati and a fucking BMW M6. And I came here, I had some money, I wasn't like poor, but I looked and I was like, fuck, my neighbor's got a Bugatti. Like, I'm a fucker, like balling out of control, right? And I'm like, and back then it was a big deal. It's different than now, like the money flows differently. I looked at that dude and I was like, you know what, in 10 fucking years, I'm fucking have a Bugatti. That's exactly what happened. And in 10 fucking years, I got more money than that guy. I got more houses than that guy. I got more cars than that guy. I mean, like the top 10 players in the bigger pond, right? Instead of the tiny pond.
You can see the scam to the Bugatti, or we're sitting right next to it. We don't see it in the.
I mean, there's a $3 million Countach here too, and there's another $3 million So
this is.
We got enough seven-figure cars.
This is the multi-million-dollar club right here.
There's a total of $25 million in cars total in my collection, and I could give less of a shit if it was 20, 30, or 40. It doesn't change anything. What changes is the power, and also I have so many cars because I'm in the car industry. Like, not only am I an enthusiast, but I'm also in the business of teaching people cars. Sure. So I have to own different cars in different classes, different ways. But I love cars. So, we don't complain if a woman has 15 purses. So I don't know why guys have this like, envy thing. This like, oh, fuck that guy, he doesn't even know cars. I'm like, okay. But yet I've had more cars than them, their entire family combined times 10. So that's the problem, is that society has turned into this ideology that we're not competing. We're trying to put the top down. I mean, look at how many socialists look at the idea that capitalism is negative. Oh, we can't compete anymore. You don't need any even playing field. It was never even to begin with. It wasn't even when I was poor either. I had to compete. Okay. Was it hard? Sure. Did it require adapting and changing my strategy 5 times? Did I build a business only to watch it crumble to the ground because I was too slow at executing? Sure. But guess what happened? We learn, we adapt, we grow. And while, yes, could you duplicate my success exactly the same way? Has it gotten harder? Yes, in that industry it has. And in others it's easier. And in others it's the same. And in new industries, it's even way easier and there's more money to be made even faster. I don't look at a Zuckerberg and go, why does Zuckerberg live this way? Or why does he have X amount of money? I don't even care why Elon Musk thinks this. That is such a separation of mental capacity that it's irrelevant to me. Like people are like, ask a billionaire how he would do it because Warren Buffett does it that way. You're not fucking Warren Buffett, first off. And secondly, driving a Camry and fucking wearing the same suit and living in a shitty house is a fucking meaningless experience that is just pathetic. And maybe 60 years ago, 100 years ago when he was growing up, he gave up his 2 nuts and said, fuck it, I don't want to be a man and I don't care. And that's okay. That's his choice of being him, right? And what I'm saying is for these fucking poor people to constantly come up with, let me find the one fucking example in the world that doesn't fucking, you know how many people told me, they're like, you're not humble. I know a billionaire, Zuckerberg, that wears a hoodie. I'm like, motherfucker. Yeah. As soon as watches got popular, Zuckerberg doesn't leave the house without a fucking $1 million watch on. Like it's every day in the fucking news. He's always had Paganis and he owns an entire block so he can drive his cars and no one sees him. Does that mean because he doesn't drive his Pagani in front of people that he doesn't have a Pagani? No. But that's fucking stupid people. They get their news on Instagram and they go, because that guy does it, he's richer than you, so you should learn from him. Motherfucker, what are you talking about? You still live in a basement. Like, what are you worried about what the billionaire in that corner is doing? You know?
They said, oh, he wears the black T-shirts, and then you realize the black T-shirt's like $600
Exactly. Yeah. Like people, when you don't understand the value of money, you see money from your lens. Right? So if you can only afford a $100K Corvette, right? Then the lens you're looking at the world is that's the best value I can afford. So how do I dictate value? Well, because at this level, value is speed. Then if I'm buying a Ferrari, is it faster? No. Oh, that's bad value. You see, I made a good choice. I bought a Corvette. No, it's because your eyes are too fucking like blind and stupid to see what the world is. So you're only seeing your view of it. This is why when someone asks me, how do you make $300 billion. I'm like, bro, I'm still trying to make my first billion. Like, I haven't made I don't know how you make 300. I don't know this. I don't know the distance to that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have eyesight on that. But if you told me at 100K, I had eyesight to 1 million. At 1 million, I had eyesight to 20 million. At 20 million, I had eyesight to 100 million. You know, like, right. But my eyesight at 20 million to 100 is not relevant to someone trying to make their first 10,000. Get it? And so it's such a disconnect that when you go to a billionaire and you go, how do I make my first $1,000? You're like, dude, you're asking the wrong question to the wrong person. His view is gone from that level. He's disconnected from that $1,000 in today's space. He probably puts $1,000 in tip at dinner. He would tell you, go work the job at the waiter. I'll give you $1,000. You'll make that. And people just don't understand that part, you know? They're so disconnected from it. And that's why we have such a collapse of wealth class. And that's also why the middle class has disappeared. The middle class tries to upkeep with the wealth class. It loses itself in trying to do that because it doesn't understand equity versus expenditure. It spends and it runs out of ways to make money. So it keeps trying to find new ways to make money, only survive. And then at the same time, the poverty class gets spreader, like larger, because again, people don't understand that they create fake expenditures. And so you have such a disconnect again that as the wealth class goes up, we think it's like killing the middle class, but it's just the rules of the landscape and the matrix have changed, and you just have to adapt and grow.
All right, a couple more questions, and then we'll roll through this. Do you think that cars like this will open doors for people? Like,
100%.
Have they opened doors
100%.
for you?
If I didn't have my first Lamborghini and I wouldn't have bought it, I wouldn't be here. Because I wouldn't have met people, I wouldn't have learned about them, I wouldn't have learned about the idea of their lack of depreciation. If I would have been afraid and I would have said, $3,000 payments, my God, I'm only making $7,000 a month. Instead, I learned and I understood that I'm not losing that $3,000, I'm parking it and I'll get it back. And because I overcame that fear, it opened up this whole box, and as a result, I was able to now teach that for the last 15 years and become very rich of it.
The same thing goes for watches? right? Like, I mean,
People will argue, listen, people will argue all the time, who needs a 500K watch that tells time? Watches and cars, we don't wear our bank accounts on our forehead. So they're status symbols that we as a society have accepted, that the more expensive your car, the more expensive your wallet, the bigger your house, more expensive in a location, the bigger of a dick you have, right? And same thing with watches. Watches are qualifiers. And so sometimes people don't understand. They go, why would Zuckerberg wear $800,000 watch? It's a fucking qualifier. It's a fuck you to everybody else at the table to be like, I have this watch. And even if you have 800K, you can't fucking get that watch.
Yeah.
Right? So it's saying, I'm a billionaire. Like, that's what it's indirectly saying. Like, I have disposable $30 million of money I don't give a fuck about. Right?
Yeah. Well said. Well said. And last question. If you had to pick one car out of this that we're standing in, really?
Phantom every time.
That's a beautiful.
You know why? Because
yeah,
the Rolls Royce does something that
scan the camera over there so you guys.
The Rolls Royce does something that people don't understand. The one thing Rolls Royce has done better than any other company in the world is master the art of experience in a way that you cannot understand until you earn your right to own one and drive one. When you do, you will touch the steering wheel and the material it's made from, 2 people in the world make it. You'll be tired and you'll realize that the insulated glass lets you hear nothing on the outside. You'll be, it flows with the understanding that its isolation from the chaos in the outside world and the experience it creates is inward, and it is brilliant on a depth that I guarantee you the more conscious you become, the more it makes sense in a way, and it also tells the world to go fuck itself in a way you'll, like, that as much as the Bugatti all day. You know, like I mean, that's a fully fuck you, like 800K car, but it's still like the most, in my opinion, the best balance of a human's driving experience that is possible. Now, it's not a sports car. You know, if we talk about what's the best sports car experience in the world, the Porsche 918 is probably one of the best driving cars of all time. I think the Countach is also one of the fucking best Lamborghini inventions of all time, and a lot of people don't know about it because very few are made and they never got to drive them. I drive the shit out of that fucking thing because I love it. But
really?
Yeah, I don't give a shit. Like, I drive all my cars. Like, everything here gets driven. I don't care. What's the point of a car you just look at? I mean, some are investments, but the only investments are the ones on top deck that are old. Just because they're pieces of shit because they're old. People are like, oh, it's the old experience. I'm like, it's fucking old. Nobody wants to drive that shit. Like, once you get in it, you're like, your radio doesn't work, you got a CD player. You know, like, you're fucking, like, half the time you're like overheating because the AC doesn't fucking turn cold fast enough. And, like, yeah, it has cool, nostalgic sense, but you drive a new thing, you get in the old thing, you want to kill yourself. You know, it's like noisy and, but it's pretty. It brings me back to the time when I didn't have money, you know?
I mean, I know you had a Murcielago, or do you still have
I still have one right there. I have an LP640 right there. That's actually one of the lowest mileage LP640s in the world. It's a 09 final edition with 300 original miles. It's never been driven, so it sits there. Yeah. That's a collectible car. It'll go up to $1 million. I'll make 600 grand off of it, and I won't give a shit. You know, it'll be gone the first day it hits $1 million.
Amazing, man. Brother, it has been a pleasure.
My absolute pleasure having you.
Very deep conversation. I know that some of the times, you know, a lot of people come here just to talk cars, but I like to go in here with you, man, because you're smart.
If you want to hear more, just read my books. You know, really put you up.
Name of the books that you've written.
I've written 12, but the 3 most important ones, if you like this conversation today, Third Circle Theory, start there. Radius, Gate of Choice. It's a trilogy.
All right, and your programs for cars and watches.
You can go to learnfrompj.com. All my stuff is listed there, from books to programs, anything. Whatever you want to learn, as long as you have an open mind, we'll teach you.
All right, man. Loved it. Thank you again for being on the podcast. Check you guys later.